What's up guys? Today it's time to step up your game. I'm Brett Garamella and today I'm going to show you how to use ND filters on your Mavic 2 Pro in the video coming up. As you can see, these are the Hasselblad filters for the Mavic 2 Pro. We have both our ND filters and our ND polarizers. Alright guys, these filters are available on Amazon. I've included a link in the description below. So what are ND filters? ND filters are kind of like sunglasses for your lens, alright? We have 4, 8, and 16. 4 is dark, 8 is darker, 16 is darker, and so on. If I had a 32, that would be even darker, and if I had a 64, that would be really, really dark. Now, in addition to these 3 ND filters, I have 3 more filters. These are also ND filters, 4, 8, and 16, but they're a combination of an ND filter and a polarizer. So what that means is that they not only make it darker, but they also polarize your image. So a polarizer is something that makes the image more vivid or more saturated, especially bringing out those blues and those greens. So sky, water like the ocean, and any type of tree or shrub or grass is gonna really pop out a lot more with the polarizer. So it's just personal taste, whether you wanna use just the ND filter and get a normal look, or you wanna use the ND filter with a polarizer and get a little more vivid, saturated look. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to use the ND filters both for video and then for photography. So these filters were sent to me by F-Stop Labs. They asked me to make a video. I'm not getting paid by them to make this video. So all my opinions in this video are my own, and they're made to help you out and make the best decision for you. So the ones on Amazon are a 4, 8, and 16 ND filter. However, the other side, where it's an ND polarizer that I have for a 4, 8, and 16, is a little changed. They changed it to an ND circular polarizer at 4, 8, and 16. Now you may be asking yourself, what's a circular polarizer? Well, a circular polarizer doesn't polarize the entire image. It only polarizes part of the image. So with a circular polarizer, it's gonna be a little more creative because you're not gonna get the entire image polarized. You're only gonna get part of the image polarized. So the other image is just gonna be a normal ND filter, and then part of the image is gonna be polarized. Just so you know, that's what a circular polarizer is. By the end of the video, if this is still confusing to you, please leave a comment below, and I'm happy to write you back and clarify everything for you. Alright guys, I'm here at beautiful Sunny Isles, Florida, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on these ND filters onto my Mavic 2 Pro. Just so you know, you can take the Hasselblad front end off by just twisting it, okay? You have to be careful. I would hold on right here with one hand and then twist with your fingers with the other hand. And actually, to do this, you first have to press in and then twist, all right? If you don't press in, you could break it. So press in, then twist, and it'll come right off. And then we're gonna put these filters on. So what I like to do is I like to take the middle one. So instead of the 4, the ND4, or the ND16, I take the ND8 because it's right in the middle. And what I do is I just hold it up to the camera, okay? So I turn on the camera, I'm gonna hold it up to the camera. I'm gonna see how it looks. And if it's too dark, then I'm gonna go with the 4. Okay, if it's too light, then I'm gonna go with the 16, and if it looks right, I'm just gonna use it. All right guys, so what I do is I start with my settings on manual. I wanna shoot at 2.8 because I know that's gonna be a shallow depth of field and give me a real cinematic look. So because I'm shooting at 24 frames per second, I always wanna shoot double that. So if you shoot 24 frames per second, you should have a shutter speed of 1/50th of a second. Okay, if you shoot at 30 frames per second, you should have 1/60th of a second. If you shoot at 60 frames per second, you should have your shutter at 1/120th of a second. So I have my aperture, I have my shutter, I've moved my ISO as low as I could possibly go, and I still see that the image is overexposed. So now I have to put on my ND filter, right? Because if we're shooting wide open, which we want to do with a low aperture number, we're going to let too much light in. That's why we have these ND filters, okay? So let's just hold it up and let's see how it looks with the 8. Okay, it didn't look too bad, but I think I need a little more, so I'm gonna put on the 16. All right, so I'm not changing my settings. I have the 16 now, which is much darker. So let me put that over the front end, okay? As I put it over the front end, we'll take a look. Okay, so I can tell that the 16 is definitely what I need. If it's still a little too bright, what I can do is I can just change my f-stop to about 3.2 or maybe f4, just so it's not too overexposed, but it's still gonna keep a nice shallow depth of field, and I'm gonna have that nice slow shutter. Okay guys, if you're having trouble getting your filter on or off, you can always put on a glove. So putting on a glove makes it a lot easier. And then I also put my drone upside down. So if you put it upside down, it's a lot easier as well to get at it. It's almost like being a lab technician. So you have to put the front end, now that I took it off, I'm gonna put it back in with the other ND filters, okay? I'm gonna put it right in there. And then I'm gonna close it up because I don't want any dust or sand or anything to get on it. Now we have our ND16 on, so let's go fly it. All right guys, so I'm shooting at 4.5. I wanted to shoot 2.8, but unfortunately it's so bright that I have to shoot at 4.5, but I'm still gonna get that slow shutter. It's still gonna have enough shallow depth of field that's gonna look great, and I'm gonna take it for flight. All right guys, now I put on another ND16, but this is an ND16 with a polarizer. So I'm gonna do the same settings. We're gonna take it up and see how it looks. Obviously, I expect it to look more saturated, a little more vivid in tone, but it's still gonna have that nice smooth look because it's an ND filter, which is an ND polarized filter. Alright guys, this last one I'm just going to use normal without any filters with the Hasselblad. So we're going to check it out. I'm going to put it on auto. Obviously we're going to have a high shutter. I'm going to try to keep the f-stop low, just around 4. So I'm going to put it maybe aperture priority, and we're going to see how it looks. So I came back the next morning about a half an hour before sunrise, and I took photos without any ND or polarizer filter on. So there was no filter at all. Because it was still dark out, I had to use a slow shutter. So as you can see in these images, the ocean actually appears to look like a lake. And the reason for this is that I used a slow shutter. So the slow shutter slows everything down so much that you can't even see the waves in the ocean. To do this with photography, you need a tripod. With a drone, it's gonna be really still. Thankfully, there wasn't a lot of wind. If there's a lot of wind, this probably won't work, but there wasn't too much wind on the ocean that day, so I was able to slow the shutter down between 2 seconds and 4 seconds. Now, if you see this tree right here, I slowed my shutter down between 2 to 5 seconds. Some as far as even 8 seconds, but at 8 seconds sometimes it's a little blurry. I always kept my ISO at 100 and the f-stop at about 2.8. I took 2 pictures of this palm tree with the beach just to show you what it would look like with a faster shutter. The second shot was at ISO 3200 with a shutter speed of 1/15 of a second. As you can see, it looks a little more grainy and the ocean doesn't look as smooth. I'll show you better examples of the difference between the stark contrast of slow shutter versus a normal shutter speed at the end of this video. And as you can see, because the drone is perfectly still, it's creating that nice soft glass look on the ocean. Now when I face it towards the building, you notice it's very saturated. That's because it's still dark out. So you're only able to get this look when it's dark out, or if you have an ND filter. And because we're doing a video on ND filters, I'm gonna show you the same sort of look with an ND filter coming up. So about a half an hour later, the sun came up and I put an ND16 polarizer filter on the front of my lens. And you'll notice now that it's light out, I still get the same look as I did when it was dark out. That's because the polarizer is making it look like nighttime, but I'm using a slow shutter to let enough light in that it's not underexposed. Sometimes you want to see each droplet in the wave, but other times you want to see just a nice smooth glassy look. A lot of people like that slow shutter because it gives it a very soft feel. You notice the seagull in the image looking at that nice soft smooth glassy ocean. Gives a nice emotion to the image. And as we go along, you can see more examples. Again, we're facing the beach now with the buildings. One thing I noticed, the colors are a little more vivid and saturated if you shoot at nighttime or when it's dark outside. However, most people don't shoot during nighttime. It's also illegal to do it more than a half an hour before sunrise. So because of this, you need the ND filter. And the polarizer adds a little more vividness to it, but if you shoot raw, you can change that in post-production. But you get a feel, you can see all the water is nice and smooth. Now in this last example, I shot higher up. I shot the shoreline with the buildings. In the first shot, I shot with a slow shutter. In the second one, I made the shutter speed much faster. And you can see the reflection in the water is much different in the two images. Even the color tones are slightly different. It's a little warmer when I use a slow shutter. So again, all these things are personal preference, and you can see them both side by side here. Now I want to show you some more examples. So over here on the left, I set the shutter speed for 2 seconds. On the right, I set it for 1/30th of a second. Obviously, I had to change my aperture. When I changed them, I shot both of these at ISO 100. I just changed my aperture and my shutter speed. And as you can see, you have that nice soft look on the left side. On the right side, you see the wave, you see all the little droplets, and you can see even the outline of the seagulls, and the clouds are more defined. Now if you shoot an image straight on, you're gonna have to use a much slower shutter speed, but because the second image was shot at an angle, if you shoot anything that moves across the frame, your shutter speed doesn't have to be that slow to get a blur. So this wave is going across the frame, and I only needed 1 second to make it blurry. And as you can see, 1/30th of a second, you can see most of the details, and even that seagull on the right hand side. Now for this example, I shot above, and on the left side, it almost looks like a painting because I made the shutter speed much slower at 4 seconds. Again, like I said before, you can shoot at 4, maybe 5 seconds. Anything more than that, the rest of the image starts to look blurry, so I recommend not going more than 4 or 5 seconds. The left side has a more artistic, more painterly feel. It almost looks like some abstract painting, whereas on the right side, you obviously can see that it's the ocean. You can see all the details with the seagulls and the waves. All right guys, I hope this video is helpful and clarified a few things about ND filters and ND filters with polarizers. After using these filters from f-stop Labs, I have to say they are very good, especially for the price. One reason I say that is because these filters, when I use them, I didn't notice much vignetting or darker shadows in the side of my frames, or any lack of sharpness or change in the actual tone of the image between the normal ND filter and without them on. Now looking at filters that aren't very good, you'll notice some vignetting on the side, meaning some shadows on the side. You'll see a change in the color tone dramatically between not using the filter and using the ND filter. And you might also notice that there's not as much sharpness when you put on the filter. So all these things are signs that it's not a great filter. But these worked really well, so I'm gonna hold on to these filters and keep experimenting with them. Before I end this video, I wanna remind you to keep your shutter no more than 5 seconds. I would say 4 seconds, between 2 to 4 seconds is kind of a sweet spot, especially when you shoot water, because it will be slow enough that it will have that nice glassy, slow look, kind of like a lake or glass rather than an ocean or very detailed. If you have the shutter speed faster than 2 seconds, it's not going to be slow enough to get that nice smooth look. However, if you have it more than 4 seconds, you're going to risk the whole image being blurry, and the image that's not moving, like the land, the sand, the trees, you want them to be in focus. As I said earlier, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to help out. I'm gonna make many more videos with the Mavic 2, other DJI drones, as well as photography. So if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel, add a like below, and remember guys, siempre pa'lante, nunca para atrás.